Fresh and clean, yeah. Fresh and clean, fresh and clean. Fresh and clean, fresh and clean. Yeah. Someone want me step on the scene. Oh, I'm so blessed and free.
For Chapter 3 of Educating the Human Potential, this is Holistic Schooling.
Rebel when we step on the scene. Oh, I'm so fresh and clean.
And the Institute for Teacher Excellence.
I'ma open my eyes, give thanks to the Most High.
We're really excited to dive in this episode because definitely feels like this has taken a turn in the reading. Yeah. The reading, Maria Montessori, is Educating the Human Potential. And the chapter that we're discussing this time is the new psychology of the unconscious. So we're going to delve deep into some topics like, okay, what's the difference in Maria's mind from old psychology and new psychology? We're going to be talking a little bit about the brain in some terms like zone of proximal development, looking into some things said by Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza, and then we'll go in order from there.
To read it at least 3 or 4 times to like really get it. The way we react to things is going to like change who we are. Not only like just like I'm not even talking about like speech or intellect or any of that. I'm talking about like health wise too. So I'm just like the way you talk to yourself, all these like the way you see the world is literally going to change your health. You can like get cancer from being negative, basically, is what I'm saying, essentially, or you can cure cancer from being positive. So it's just like, how powerful is that? And your mind plays a huge role. And I actually witnessed this because when I was reading the first chapters about like unconsciousness and stuff and talking about, which we were going to talk more about, all these like scientists and researchers that talks about the positive mind and how important it is to have, because my dad, who suffered from actual like mental health, when he was going through that, like really his mental health like deteriorated in 3 years, I would say, like from I'm kind of like sick to like, you know, he committed suicide. So it was like to the extreme. But during those 3 years, if I were to look at him, he was only a 47-year-old man. So 47 is pretty young. You don't like, if you think about life, okay, the average human, let's say, is like they're 70, right? So he's like midlife, you know? So he's not an old man. But the day he passed away, he looked like a 90-year-old man. And you would think like, what is it that made him look so old, feel so old? He looked and felt so old, like his skin felt so old. And it wasn't because he had a condition, because it was really, he committed suicide. His health was okay. So it was nothing wrong with his health. It was more like his mind that basically changed his whole entire body, even his appearance. It even gets to that extent. It changed his appearance. And all that negative thinking made him exactly what he felt on the inside. So like what you feel on the inside is going to show on the outside. So all of these like weird things that we're obsessed over or we stress over, it's so funny because the solution to it is the actual opposite. Just don't stress over it and it won't be there. It won't be a problem for you. It won't be, and you could be cured, who knows? But yeah, it was like really cool knowing that the healthy way of life is just living simple, kind of like what I've been trying to like seek really, because I'm trying to live that life. And I was watching also a video about sustainable living, which is pretty hard to do actually. I'm like, okay, because there's this guy, I forgot his name, gosh, I should have wrote his name down, but he like lives a sustainable life. And we're talking about like real sustainable. He grows his own food. He eats only his own food. He doesn't even use the toilet like out of actual, like the normal conventional toilet we have. He has one that's outside. He uses sawdust to like cover his poop, and like he uses that as part of his compost for his land, which he composes so much food that he actually shares with the community because it is so much food. And he's just trying to teach people how to live a sustainable life. And I'm like, okay, so it's not as easy as it looks, but when we get to that simple, just like life, he looks so young. He looks so healthy. Like he doesn't look like a guy that goes to the gym 24/7 and has like these huge muscles. You see those guys? Like
Yes.
you would think like, oh my God, health. But really you don't have to actually look like that. Everybody looks different in some way, but eating healthy and like just living a simple life can like change you, you know? He's so okay, and like people would stress over not having a dishwasher, for example. Oh my God, I can't use it. He's just like, I removed the dishwasher from the house and we have just like a little basket, and that's how we wash our dishes, and it's okay. And nobody's like feels horrible about it because we're living without having to depend on this or that or that or that, because all of these dependents, eventually when it's taken away, it causes that stress, which causes other things. But yeah, overview of the chapter is just like, it's amazing how our minds can play a role in every single aspect, literally every single aspect. And learning for children, because they're like absorbing like sponges, and then for adults, it can change your life, basically.
Absolutely. Even homeschool parents too, who adapt this like anxiety or stress as it relates to homeschooling their own children. It's like, no, we can just simply rewire that thought by abandoning the negative emotion associated with, well, I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. Even teachers don't know everything. The system doesn't know everything. But to take that approach, because I work with homeschool parents, and one of my parents, she began like in the summer contemplating, well, I'm really worried, I don't know, to now feeling a lot more confident, like, wait, I'm more than capable of doing this. And even though she's a pharmacist, so she might not have an education background, but with me as a resource, and then another teacher, reading teacher, that she uses for her young daughter Selma, now she's able to really feel that support, like that genuine support that a lot of parents, I feel like, are not necessarily gaining when they put their kids in the education system, because teachers right now are so overwhelmed. And it's getting to the point where as the news is developing on the health situation that's going on across the globe, teachers are feeling a certain level of stress, and they worry not just about themselves and their own families, but the 30 plus kids that they're working with as well. And and imagine, it's like having 30 lineages, like each kid has like a whole entire family, and it's hard to really manage that. But going back to the point of homeschool parents, like, yes, definitely don't worry. Join our classes, do the readings, find a group, have one buddy partner. And if that is even seems virtually impossible, go on YouTube, look at what other homeschool moms or what other homeschool parents have to say. Don't feel alone. There's so many people right now that are joining this alternative program, because we want our kids to feel some sense of application, real life skills in the moment. So I'm really excited for what we're about to dive into.
She made one example of this. I think it was the math, the mental math that the student was doing. And then he had a dream, and he couldn't solve this problem. He had a dream, and he woke up and he's like, okay, I solved the problem. But really what was solved was, everything was solved in his subconscious mind, or like unconscious mind, and it was already solved by then. So sometimes I feel like she was saying, sometimes you need a break. You can't have like a ton load of like, or trying to solve something so focused. And then like, I also got that some study skills I was learning. Because when I was reading about this, I'm like, oh my God, that's so weird. Because when I was studying for the SATs, or even when I was in college, they would tell me like some study skills would be to study your work and then don't look at it and then come back to it. Why do they say that? They never gave me a reason to why it was just like a good study skill. But the psychology behind it is that when you look at something the first time, that's like at one first glance look, it's a lot of information to take in. You let your subconscious, unconscious mind kind of like feel it.
Simmer on it.
And then when you come back and look at it, you come back with like fresh eyes, but you still have a memory, or you're not going to remember everything you read. No, but when you reread it, you find new things. And it happens all the time when people watch movies and stuff too. Like, we didn't watch this part. Well, it's because like, so you need to, it makes sense too, because the whole phrase practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
That practice is so important for everything. And it's really true, because think about riding a bike, think about everything in life, even motherhood, right? So we go through this stage of newborn, toddler, and each stage is a different stage, different things that you have to like focus on. But then we have kids and more kids, and we have to go back to that newborn stage or go back to these stages. How do we like kind of know what to do? It's not like we're relearning it, because we're not. In a sense, we are basically remembering what we did. It's kind of like, it's easy because we already know, like, it's practice, all the practice that we do. So it's just like memory, but not, what is it called? Not memory. What is it called?
Oh, you know the word.
It's with the M.
Mimi.
It's like
called,
Mimi, but with the N.
yes, Mimi. And that's part of the game too. I love that you brought that up, because we're about to dive into that. I wanted to read a quote from Maria Montessori, just right in the beginning of the first chapter. It's on that second page of the first chapter.
Yeah.
She says, in order to gain something from life, we must retain traces of experiences undergone. And here comes memory to our aid. So I thought that really significant, because that has a lot to do with how we learn and our ability to learn. So for example, Sumaya, right? When she's picking leaves, I mean, when she's picking, well, there's nothing that this girl does not pick and eat.
Right. That is true.
But you know, when she's in the garden, or when she's, you know, when she's around your husband, and I notice that she's like picking at things and trying things. Now, whenever you're in a new setting or you're in a new environment, and obviously she's given the permission, hey, like, this is something that you can really go explore and try. What's really going to happen is she retains that memory of when she was with you and when she was with your husband, being around the garden, being able to try things. And that retaining of that memory is what supports her to be like, okay, making that connection, like, oh, okay, I've done this before. I know what this means. It means I'm going to try some things. It means that I'm expanding my palette. Obviously in a baby's brain, none that conversation,
not those words. But babies, or like even children, are just so innocent, and they don't do things by the rules, that it ends up being so natural. And we are kind of like, are the ones that restrict them or make them do a certain thing or act a certain way, so that it fits our society, it fits our way of, or our view of how things are supposed to be. But really, like, they have such a curious mind that they just want to do everything and anything. And it's so beautiful, you know, because we've been programmed to be so like, don't think outside the box kind of person, that I feel like we've been robbed of life, basically, because I'm like, what the heck? You know, I want to be a child again. I want to see it through their eyes. I want to see the world through their eyes, because in my eyes, I see a lot of like, you see a lot of negativity, media, social media, all this like pressure that kids don't have that. Imagine like living a life where they don't even know that exists. They just know, I'm here, I'm present today, and I'm just going to be present. I'm going to be present in my surroundings, in my environment. And like these experiences that she was talking about, these are just, and it doesn't have to be huge experiences, right? Like little things like go water the plants, which she's doing right now. So these experiences, the more, sometimes too, kids act differently, right? They go through it. For example, with Sumaya in language, since she's like learning 3 languages at one time, we speak Spanish, Arabic, and English to her. So she doesn't say words, or if you go to her and you say the word amazing, she would just look at you like, what are you talking about? Like,
Give thanks, giving thanks for life. No stress in on my side. So when you come around, you can't hold me down, you can't kill me with no attack. Whoa, try your best, my life not stress, just a whole a vibe and ease back. You got to be a rebel, keep your mind right, meditate for good measure. Read a psalm a day to chase away the devil. Keep your heart clean so your days can be better. You got to be a rebel. You have to live on a rebel. Oh, you got to be a go-getter if you really want to take it to another level.
Don't even tell me to say a word, right? So people would think like, oh my gosh, she doesn't know how to talk. But then 2 days later, she comes, she's like, amazing. And I'm like, and then but I mean, now, before I would be like, but now I have the science behind why that happens, because she sits through it, learns it subconsciously, like lets her brain like just like absorb it. And then when she's ready, she's going to say it. And that's the new skill that she learned, which is learning how to say the word amazing, or even like the concept of the word amazing. So it's just like kids do it naturally. Like they do it all the time. So I feel like we don't even, as a homeschool almost, at first I would agree. I thought it was so hard. I'm like, I cannot do this. I don't know how to do this. My kids are not going to be smart. But this has been really reprogramming the way I think. Like they can do so much more. They can learn so much more just by allowing them to explore, not just restrict them on this period or this teacher, because not every teacher too works well with every student. But that doesn't mean the teacher is bad, right? Because they have 25 students to work with. I'm sure if they had like 2, it would be much easier to control. But then we would need millions of teachers, right? And we barely have any at this point. So it's probably not going to happen. But the more people homeschool, it would allow that individual, and probably we would have like superstar leaders in this world if we had that open-minded and just like, and we have to just keep going through the chapter, because I'm telling you, in the end, she talks about why these things are so important. I feel like Maria's telling everybody to homeschool. I don't know.
All right, so stay tuned, everyone, for a part 2. We'll be having a part 2 here at Holistic Schooling, and we will continue to discuss all of these topics. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Isn't it?
I'm so fresh and clean. The half that has never been told. We are kings and queens with no crown.